in my contracts, I actually list, the devices that I have to test on, and I
Hmm.
say, I think this gives me a pretty good spectrum, particularly on the Android side. I say this gives me a pretty good base to test from. I said, but there's going to be issues out there that I can't predict.
Yeah, I tell them that I do testing, but the onus for final testing is upon you and your team if you have a team. One person cannot both develop and test. It's just too much. Typically, this is a small application.
Well,
Yeah.
and two, you're so close to it. You know
Right.
that you.
I'm not a good tester because I'm too aware of how it should work, and I don't do the dumb things, the confusing things, whatever they may be. A nice way to say that. Thinking can't think of one. Sorry.
That's
You don't
why
do the creative
the
responses.
That's
creative.
right. The creative usage.
Yeah, that's why I like to say I'm too close to the problem. That it's not you, it's me.
Charles, you and I are completely different. Charles, when he says something, he says it in a way nobody's feelings get hurt. It's very understandable. When I'm like, hey,
Hey,
stupid.
hey, what's wrong with you? Are you stupid? That's good. Well, hey, let's talk about
Mm.
grid patterns because that sounds
Let,
sexy.
let me bring up my.
Grid patterns. I was trying to write this up this weekend. Like what the event was going to be about. Hey, we're going to put game pieces into a grid pattern and all that kind of stuff like that. And there was just never. I couldn't figure out a good, and exciting way to make it sound.
It's not that exciting. It's very fundamental, though. People are constantly ask the question of how to lay out things in a grid, not understanding. I think the problem is that people they jump right in and they don't understand things like scaling. They don't understand that the uh, coordinate system is sort of upside down from what they are used to from learning in school, Cartesian coordinate systems, et cetera, et cetera. And so they get really confused quite quickly. But it's quite simple, and I'll demonstrate that today. So, first of all, just a quick review. What are we making? We're making a simple grid-based memory game in which uh, the mechanic here is that there are cards on the screen, and you can click on them. They will look as if they are flipping over, and your goal here is to find two cards that match and then reveal them simultaneously or sequentially. See if I can manage this. There we go. Okay, so I found the banana and the banana. We get a match. Cards are taken off the screen. When we match all of the cards in the correct sequence, all the cards are removed and the game is over. We win. Or if our timer runs out, we lose. So we have 39 seconds. I'm going to turn that off. So today's topic is grid layout. But before I get there, I just wanted to revisit what's in this project so the people who are picking it up after some time or picking it up for the first time know what they're looking at. All of the code for this project can be found on the GitHub, and we will provide a link at the end of the show. Additionally, this project comes in a couple of different flavors. It comes in a standalone version, which is just the game itself. It doesn't have any menus, it doesn't have any buttons, anything like that. It's just flipping cards and keeping track of your score and your time. Then there is the framed version, which uses Composer to wrap this with a splash screen, a menu, an options screen for turning on and off sound and music, and a win and lose screen for when you win or lose the game. And there's also a folder here called Empty Frame for those who want to dig through it, and it's basically the frame minus the game. So if you wanted to reuse what you saw here, you could just take that and put your own content in. Within the game, there's some major files and folders that you need to be aware of. There's the build setting and config Lua files. And please forgive me here, I meant not to put Lua here. It's implied. So the config.lua file, the main.lua file. Main.lua, if you're new, is the entry point for your app. It's the first bit of executable code associated with actually doing something with your app that will load. Config Lua actually is run first to set up your design space, and build settings is, I'm not sure exactly sure about the sequence here, but build settings is used to set up available resources for your device, permissions, things like
Build
that.
setting is called when you build in simulator, and it's not used when you developing for Corona Enterprise. So when it's on device, build settings are not executed, and only config Lua is got executed on the device.
Yeah, but when you build, it uses the build settings to provide certain features also. I mean, in addition to when you're running the simulator. Is that
Yeah,
what you said? Did I
build
mishear you?
settings runs first.
Okay, yeah, it's used during the build process to select what's going to be available provided for you. Additional plugins, things like that. Okay, so main Lua. There are a couple of boxes here called Case Error Detect and SSK. You'll notice that I've sort of shaded them out. You can ignore them. SSK is the Super Starter Kit. It's my library of goodies, and I use those in the development of this demo application, but you don't need to be familiar with it other than how to load it, which if you just look in main Lua, you'll see a single line in there where I'm loading this sort of super module. Case Error Detect is something that you might want to take away for your projects, and what it does is you load this module and you run a single line. Let me bring up the code so you can see it. So you load the module, and then you can optionally tell it to promote to error. And what this does is new and old users alike, we all make this mistake. You're working on your application. You have a image file, bob.png or billy.jpg, and you have a uppercase B, and then in your code you type lowercase b. Everything works great in the simulator. You build it for your device, and it doesn't work. And you say, "Well, what's going on here? I don't have a good error message. I have to dig into the console and go, haha, it can't find the file." But if you want to find these things while you're on the simulator, simply include case error detect in your project, require it, and again, optionally promote to error. And what will happen is if you make a case mistake with your file names, it will detect this and tell you what file it is in and what line of code has incorrectly accessed that file. All right, so the key parts here, however, are the sound module, the game module, HUDs, and card. It's a pretty simple game. Within these, the game module has 4 major functions: create, destroy, draw board, and a callback on flipped card. HUDs has a create and destroy function. The card module has one function that it exposes, which is create. When you're looking at this document later, if you do, you'll notice that I've used colors to imply relationships here. I'll show you a piece of code briefly when we start to look at the board layout, but I write my code as modules, and what I do is expose any functions that I want to use in other files, which in a way makes them public. If people in the audience are thinking in terms of object-oriented languages like C++ or whatever, you could think of this in a sense as a publicly exposed function. I've made it available outside of the file. However, I oftentimes will have local functions which are used as helpers or construction widgets or whatever, and because they're local, they are not available outside of the scope of that file, and so you could think of them as private. Card has, and we looked at this in the first episode where we covered this game, it has 3 variations on the card flipping algorithm, and these are local functions called flip1, flip2, and flip3. Then there is the sound module, which has an init function and a function to play the soundtrack music if you choose to. And of course, PDF viewer reader is helping me out now. Sorry about that. Stop doing that. Wonderful. Okay, we'll just zoom in a little bit. And finally, there is a runtime event listener that is set up by the sound module. And I've discussed this previously when we talked about our last game. But in essence, what this is, it's a listener that is just sitting out there waiting for the on SFX event to occur. and it will extract data from the event as we pass it, and it will play the appropriate sound. So